Welcome to the Limitless Leaders Podcast. This is a show where my guests and I explore and expand on all things mindset, leadership, and communication. On the show, I interview inspiring leaders, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all walks of life, where they share their stories, experiences, and lessons. This is a podcast for you if you're looking to learn, grow, and accelerate your life, career, and who you are. Hi, and welcome to the Limitless Leaders Podcast, where I get people from all walks of life to share their experience, their learnings, and also everything on leadership, EQ, communication, and mindset. Today, I am super excited to introduce you to Amy Jacobson. Welcome, Amy.
Hello, Renee. How are you?
I'm good. I've been really excited to get you in and talk about what is a much needed skill, being EQ or EI. So I'd love just to introduce you. So Amy is an EI and human behaviour specialist, delivering emotional intelligence programs, keynotes, and workshops across Australia and internationally. A twice widely published author of emotional intelligence and her new book, The Emotional Intelligence Advantage, Amy is a sought-after media commentator whose mission is to break down misconceptions around EI, help people to increase their emotional intelligence, and create purpose-driven teams who get results. So welcome.
Thank you. It's so nice to be on the podcast today.
Yeah, it is. And you're in, I always say sunny Perth, but the weather is changing in Australia and it's not so sunny. So I'd love
No, we're
you go.
yeah, no, I was going to say we actually have a lot of people that think that Perth is hot all the time, but we actually get a really cold winter over here. So I think this morning we're about 5 degrees, so it's nice and fresh.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when people travel to Perth, it's usually in the hot times, so they get that reference to it. I know I do. But I'd love, Amy, I'd love you to share sort of how have you become you and to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I've always had a fascination with the mind. So I think it's really the mind and people that have landed me here. Did I know I was going to end here? No, absolutely not. I think that, for a lot of us, we kind of go round and round, not so much in circles, but we go down different paths and they lead to another area. So it took me a while to get here. My background is corporate world, and I was in corporate world for over 19 years, but I always had this fascination with the mind. And I think being in corporate world, which I absolutely loved, and I still do a lot of work in that space, but being in that world, it become really obvious just how much competitors can copy your product, but your people and the way your people interact have so much influence on your success. And that fascination to be able to look at a team and be able to see the difference between a team that gelled and a team that doesn't, and a team that is high performing in the way they speak to each other and their energy that they bring, and that motivation and drive that they have, and just that level of awareness. And I think the more that I could see going into different teams, and in my corporate space, I was put more in the end of my career into leadership positions where I didn't have the technical skills of the leadership roles I was going into, but I was put into teams that were underperforming and teams that had, a lower market penetration. It's just, and looking at those teams and thinking, how did they get here? And how do we actually change and flip that mindset so that they can actually start to bring out the best in each other and start to communicate in a way that actually leads to results rather than being so focused on just the process and that technical side.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I really resonate with you because I could watch people forever. And I think I always say people before process, before progress. and putting the people
Mhm.
first. And yeah, and we both know a lot of companies don't. They think they do. How
Yeah.
important do you think emotional intelligence is in this day and age with hybrid work, AI, stifled connection?
Look, emotional intelligence is as equally as important as your IQ. I think, I'm not someone who's going to say that it's more important because I think it's the balance between the two of them that really get us there. Because I think that your emotional intelligence can take you so far,
Mm,
and you've got to have some IQ to back it up. But equally, your IQ will only take you so far without some emotional intelligence to back it up. So I kind of look at the whole thing that, when we're looking at the workplace, it's your IQ that usually gets your foot in the door. So
yeah,
that's your resume, your technical skills, your qualifications, your backgrounds. But it's your EQ or your emotional intelligence that gets you promoted, because that's where you start to look at it's the how and why you do what you do. And we've all worked with those people who are technically brilliant at what they
yeah.
do, but they're just not very nice people to work with. So
No,
that emotional intelligence, I mean, as you said, Renee, like it is people before process, and sometimes we get that mixed up. But I think we
mm,
know that the two are intertwined so much that
yeah.
you cannot have one without the other, or else you won't reach success.
No, no. And you're right. Technical brilliance is no longer enough. I think it's
No.
served for decades, but we're at a point now where, and you'd know this, and I've read your book. Like there's so many statistics on it, but people are yearning for human connection. Bringing back that human touch into leadership, into teams. And I really believe people are getting more process driven because AI is helping them automate that. So I think EQ is not really an and, it's an or, it's an and. It's a non-negotiable.
It is.
Yeah.
I can remember working with an organization quite a few years ago now, and it was actually someone on the executive board, on the high level executive board, that turned around and said, "We don't really have time for emotional intelligence."
Mm,
And and I said, "You actually don't have a choice. You do not have a choice whether you have time or not. Emotional intelligence will always be in play, and the level of emotional intelligence that's in that situation or in that conversation is going to determine the success." So saying you don't have time it's just not an option. You've got to, that's pretty much just saying we don't want decent levels of emotional intelligence. We're just happy with either borderline or no use of emotional intelligence.
And it's even the irony in people that say they don't need it.
They're usually the ones that need it the most.
That's right. That's right. And I think I read something recently. I think it's 71% of hiring managers are looking more at EQ than IQ. And I agree with you. You need competency, you need motivation and will. But at the end of the day, this whole people piece is what can set you apart from your competitor. And
Mhm.
I don't think enough companies are getting on the front foot with this.
Yeah.
What would, for those listening that may not know exactly what emotional intelligence is, do you want to run through your definition and how it works?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, very simplistic version that I would always say is that IQ is what you can do and, well, what you know and what you can do, where your EQ or your emotional intelligence is the how and why you do it. So it's what's sitting there behind that's kind of driving it. So when we look at emotional intelligence, the most well-known definitions out there, we know there's five key areas of emotional
Yeah.
intelligence, and that's self-awareness, self-regulation, your empathy, social skills of communication, and motivation. I like to take it just that little bit further, specializing in the workplace. I think, we can dive that little bit deeper into it. And the five areas that I look at of emotional intelligence is, the first one is own it,
Yeah.
which is really around owning who you are, but not just owning who you are and what drives you, what values and beliefs drive you, but it's also owning the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in the workplace, we tend to miss that first step, which is really accepting the fact that this is happening, whether you like it or not. Like, this is
Mm,
going to happen, and you have no influence in this. You have no say. This is coming, like this
yeah.
change in system or this restructure or, whatever it is, this is happening, and you've got to own that. So, that first step around self awareness is is not just being aware of who we are, but it's also being able to own the reality of the situation of what's happening.
Yeah, so important. And before you go on, I read your whole book.
Oh, that, yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, run us through the five key concepts. So keep going. So owning it's the whole ownership, being
Yeah.
highly self-aware, present, and almost having that compelling reason to up your EQ skills.
Yeah, yeah. So own it is that first step, right? And that is 100% in our own head. This is us realizing, okay, this is who I am, this is what's driving me, this is my values and beliefs are, and this is what's happening in the environment around me right now. It's reality check. When you hit into the second stage, which is face it is that area where all of the emotions start to come in, right? And we know that we're feeling emotions every second of every day. So
Yeah,
these
yeah,
emotions will bubble up.
yeah.
And, and I'm a big believer in the fact that there's no such thing as a good or bad emotion. So all of these emotions, they're all happening for a reason. And what we really want to look at this point is we've got to face every single one of those emotions,
Yeah.
which is why it's called face it, right? It's you've got to face the emotion and you've got to understand, is this emotion appropriate for the situation that's happening at the moment, and is the severity level right? Because quite often we have the right emotion, but the severity level's not right. So instead of responding at a 2 out of 10 angry, we're responding at a 9 out of 10 angry, and that's where we've kind of got to look and go, is this appropriate? Probably not. So that face it step is the second step around really facing those emotions that are coming up and acknowledging them and knowing how to process through them. And
Mm,
those first two steps, you own it and face it, are 100% in your own head. So it's all about us. It's looking internally.
yeah.
Then we get to that third step, which is your feel it. And feel it is when we get out of our own head and we start to understand how the people around us are feeling. So this is
Mm,
where empathy comes in, but there's so much more in this area. There is, there's empowerment, there's understanding how other people are wired, what makes them tick, what drives them. It's understanding what they're really good at, maybe what they're not so good at, what their relationship is with change. So this feel it is going, okay, it's no longer about me. I'm okay. I've owned it and I've faced it. Now let me understand how the people around me are actually feeling
So
and what's
feedback
making
from
them
the outside world. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly right. So it's that moment just to pause and observe and say, okay, it's not about me. Then once you get past feel it, you're going to ask it. And ask it is about asking the right questions and answering the questions that are being asked of us. So
Mm,
this is your communication, but this communication, we know communication is a beast, right? It's kind
yeah.
of that
Yeah.
area that
Yeah.
when things are going well, people will always kind of revert to it. The communication's great. When
Mm,
things aren't going so well, it's usually a communication breakdown.
that's
So this
right.
ask is about making sure that you're giving people the opportunity to ask questions, but you're also answering those questions and knowing that communication is actually not about us. It's about the person receiving the message. And if
Mm,
they don't understand or they don't receive that message, then communication's failed. And that's
yeah.
on us. That's on us for not delivering in a way that worked. And then your last step, that fifth step, is drive it. And drive it is when it all comes together. So this is a motivation. And this is kind of where we go, okay, I've owned it, I've faced it, I understand how people are feeling, I've had the conversation, I've asked the questions, I've answered the questions that are being asked. Now let's move forward. This is
Yeah.
how do we actually drive it forward and work with the wirings of the brain. So this is a part that comes in. How do we work smarter, not harder? How do
Mm,
we get those efficiencies that are involved in there? How do we actually understand what even setting a goal looks like and how to actually go with the wirings of our mind on
mm.
knowing how to achieve it and have that progress? So that's kind of those five key
Got it.
areas.
Yeah, I really that stood out, and I know the book's written around that framework of those five steps. And I think, yeah, with the busyness and we default under pressure, and I say we become human doings, not human beings, it's easy to forget those two steps, get feedback, but you've got to go in before you go out.
Yeah.
And we know, and those listening will know, we get time poor, we get skill stretched. But at the end of the day, whatever you're working towards in or out of work, because this is human behavior, if you're not having that deep EQ and building that muscle, sort of like, yeah, I don't know, what's the point, if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's important to call out too that, emotional intelligence is a skill like
Yeah.
anything else that we
Yeah.
do. So it's not one of those things that you're either born with it or you're not. Like Don't
No.
get me wrong, some people are naturally born with higher levels of
Yeah.
emotional intelligence, but emotional intelligence is a skill that you can't just pick up once. You can't just listen to this podcast and walk away and say, okay, I'm emotionally
I've got
intelligent
it.
now. Yeah, I'm all done. But you've got to work on it every single day. And in every situation, we have a choice.
Mm,
Excuse me, we have a choice to either respond in an emotionally intelligent way or to not. And
yeah.
sometimes we get it right and sometimes we don't. So, as you said, it's that muscle that we must keep on working on to build in every situation.
Yeah, definitely. And, for people out there listening right now, and the world is a noisy place, and that's no excuse, but there's a lot going on. What's one little tip you could give our viewers around making the time to go inwards? How do they do that?
Yeah. My first tip that always comes to mind is just to hit pause for a moment.
Mm,
I just think we are in such a rush to do everything, to be everything,
yeah.
that you've got to hit that pause button and
Mm,
actually take the minute to take 3 deep breaths, to actually look inside. And this is like, we know there's so much research out there that we know that this benefits us, right? When it comes to, your mindfulness, but also just taking that pause and taking those deep breaths allows our mind to be able to work the way it should work. And that is making sure that our logical brain is kicking in before our emotional brain. So
yeah.
I would encourage all the listeners out there, even today, even when you finish listening to this podcast, just hit pause, be 100% present,
Mm,
look internally and ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Like,
mm,
what are the emotions that are actually present right now, and what's driving them? Where are they coming from? And
yeah.
that's the best place to start.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, because we need to feel to change. And I love your quote, face the emotions, process them, but don't unpack your bags and stay there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love that.
because we do that often, right? We're like, we know that we've all been guilty of that before. And that's what I refer to as looping, right? It's that
Yeah.
looping between own it and face it. If you do unpack your bags and stay there, you're stuck in this loop of, well, I'm feeling this way, but I don't want to own that. And
Mm,
then you're just going back and forth and trying to fight the emotion and trying to fight the reality and go, well, I'm not happy with this. I don't want to feel like this. I
yeah.
don't want this to happen. But
Yeah.
you've got to own the fact that it is happening and you are feeling like this, and that's okay. So yeah, it is making sure that you stop enough to feel it and don't, because we know that if you try to push down on those emotions or ignore those emotions, it's like a pressure cooker, it's going to explode.
Suppressing them. Yeah.
So you've got to actually stop and face the emotions, but
Yeah.
just don't unpack your bags and stay there. Know how to process it, know how to clear it, and know how to move forward.
Yeah, definitely. And look, everyone's different. I know for a lot of people, externalizing, so actually writing in a journal is a good way to do that. Have you got any other ideas?
I would say when you have a look at all of your modalities, there's so many different ways to do it right. And journaling is fantastic for so many people. I know for myself, I really struggle to journal,
Yeah.
and that is simply because I'm more of a vocal person. So, on
Yeah, I
those
get it.
times when I struggle to journal, I'll pick up my phone and hit
Mhm.
record on an audio message, and
Yeah.
I'll just speak straight into an audio message to just talk about it. Now,
Mm,
that for me also that works speaking to somebody else about it. A lot of the time I feel like as soon as I get it out of my head and you
yeah.
start talking about it, you kind of solve your own problems as you're saying them out loud. So
Yes. Yeah.
you've got people that are going to do better from, journaling and actually just keeping them onto paper. You're going to have people that have a preference of speaking them out loud. You're going to have people that also are going to tap into other areas like your meditation, your breathing, all of those
Yeah.
kind of areas. And some people, even just getting those emotions out through exercise and through rigorous activity is
Moving.
actually going to
Yeah.
help as well. Yeah. So all of your different senses that you have there are going to help you to be able to bring it from internal to that external point.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Because everyone is different. I'm a writer as well, and I was the girl that had a diary from when she was 8. But I've been through a cancer journey the last 12 months. Every time I've picked my journal up, I actually feel nauseous.
Yeah.
Like there's
Wow.
something. And for me, you probably picked up, I'm not a still person at the best of times.
Yep.
I can't meditate. For me, my meditation is cooking.
Uh-huh.
I've even got a little Insta channel. I've always loved with no recipes. I don't like
Yeah,
love cooking. And I even found the first 4 weeks of being diagnosed, I was like normal and people were sort of like, and I think I had 2 sort of days the whole time where mentally I was just like, why is this happening to me? And I reframed it, why is this happening for me? But
Mhm.
both of them were when I was cooking.
Yeah,
The
okay.
music on, I was in the moment. And even though I was physically moving, I was in flow. And I think when we're in flow, whatever that means to you and however you do that, sometimes that really helps us to surface what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's understanding, right, that our mental health and our physical health is directly related.
all
So
connected.
for every emotion you
Mm,
feel, your body is also going to have a physical response. So
yeah,
it absolutely makes sense to be able to help get those emotions out, to tie in that physical
yeah.
movement as well, which will help you to release it.
It does. It does. Even when you don't feel like doing that, it does. What's the old saying? Motion is lotion.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and do you know what, Renee? Like I
So
start
true.
every morning with music blaring. I'm such a music
Awesome.
person.
Yes.
So the minute I walk into my bathroom and I'm about to,
Right.
get in the shower and the music goes on and I have my own little dance party. It's great.
I love it. I
It's
love
just like there's no cameras around.
Yeah, that you know of. So
Yeah.
you touched on, you can be born with a certain amount of emotional intelligence, and it's like your values and everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The way we communicate is based on our experience, culture, etc. Do you believe it's a learnt skill, and do you believe that it gets, so we increase our EQ as we get older because we're going through more and exposed to more?
Not always for people. I do believe that when we're younger, we have much higher natural levels of emotional
Yeah,
intelligence.
yeah.
If when we have a look at kids, kids don't overanalyze things too much
Uh,
like we do as adults. And I think, when you look at those younger years, especially through our younger years of schooling and parenting as well, we really push that emotional intelligence side well. How does this make you feel? What are your values? And you look at any primary school and they're really big on their values, right?
mm, mm.
But as we get into those tougher years, which is those teenage years where so much change is happening throughout our whole body, we tend to push that away and we tend to kind of make IQ the number one focus, right? It's all about your results, it's all about
Oh,
your IQ,
school. Yeah,
with
exactly.
which though that point in our life is probably the time that we need our emotional intelligence more than anything because we know the impact on our mental
Yeah.
health. And I think it depends on how we come out the other end of that and what kind of path we go into. So for
Mm,
some people, when they're moving from their 20s onwards, they'll go down that heavily IQ path. And I can see it in some of the industries that I go into. So
yeah.
some of the industries where you can see are very academic industries. It's very book smart. It's, they're there because they are technically brilliant at what they do.
Engineering.
Engineering, right?
There are a lot in that area. Yeah.
So whenever I deliver to any engineering organization, I change the language
Okay.
completely of what I'm
Yeah.
using. So
Yeah.
you've got to be really cautious of that, right? But then I'll give you an example. When I go into the medical industry, it's
Mm,
a real mixture because you've got people
yeah.
who are there as specialists and surgeons who are technically brilliant. So to be an amazing, amazing surgeon, you've got to be able to switch off your emotional intelligence. You've got to be
Right.
able to really focus, right?
Yeah.
But then you get the nurses in the front line who are driven by emotional
Love
intelligence. They've kind of
it.
stepped into the industry because they want to make a difference.
Mm,
It's their caring. They're out of their head and they're, thinking about everyone else for so much of it. So
yeah.
I think it really does depend on what path we tend to go down and what we surround ourselves with. I think that people's emotional intelligence is definitely growing now.
Yeah,
So
I,
we
I
we have
agree with that. Yeah,
we
even
we have a higher
pandemic.
focus.
Even the pandemic, I think, has built a lot of resilience. I've noticed that.
Yeah.
And people will even say, I'm going through something really tough. It's nothing like the pandemic, especially being in 4 lockdowns in Victoria.
In Melbourne, yeah. Well, I also think too, when you have a look at the changing workplace, right? Our increased focus on diversity, on inclusion, on balance, on all of those areas means that we are increasing, well, not increasing, we're asking people to have a voice.
Yeah,
We are
that's right.
encouraging them to have a voice. But when you have workplaces, when you look at the mixture of people in a workplace, it's always, an odd mixture, isn't it? Like it's
It,
people that you probably wouldn't usually be around.
no, and it's always diverse, and that's what makes it colourful and how it is. But you're right.
Right. But
Mm,
and when you bring that group of people together and you encourage everyone to have a voice and have that diversity and inclusion and quality, which is amazing, we should be doing that. What we're finding though, there are new challenges that are coming up now because when you're asking everyone to have a voice, everyone has a very different voice. They have different values, different beliefs, very different opinions. And we want people to speak up and be vulnerable and, have their opinions. So emotional intelligence has become so important to be able to balance that out because we are noticing that there is, more conflict in some areas of workplaces
oh,
because
yeah.
people are speaking up. So you've got to have that emotional intelligence
Mm,
balance. So it's great to see us focusing a little bit more on that balance.
yeah. And it's, 10 years ago we did work on this, but no one knew what it was. It was a bit
Oh,
like years ago when I ran value sessions. You couldn't use the word value. I had to go, we're going to talk about what's important to you as
what
a
does?
team. So we're getting there. And
We are.
Amy, I have a model called 5D energy. I do a lot on energy and,
Yeah.
having emotional, spiritual, social, mental, and physical energy. And I think all of those they're like little rivers that run into this whole emotional intelligence.
Yeah, they absolutely are.
Do you think people sometimes have emotional intelligence in overdrive? So too much emotion and not enough of the logic? Do you see any of that?
I think, that's when the emotional hijack comes in, right?
Yeah.
This is when your emotional brain takes over your logical
Mm.
brain, and it is a completely normal reaction because that
Yeah.
is how our mind is wired. Our mind is wired for that to be able to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And that's our amygdala, that's our emotional brain
Mm.
kind of kicking in that fight or flight response. It's kind of kicking in fast because it
Yeah.
feels like it needs to keep us safe. Now, what it needs to keep us safe from today is very different to what it needed to keep us safe from, hundreds of
Yeah.
years ago. But it hasn't changed. The
No.
wiring is still there. So, there are situations where our emotions do start driving and our emotional brain starts driving. Is that emotional intelligence? No, it's not
No.
because we're missing the intelligence part, right?
Yeah.
And I think I was having
That's
a
a good
conversation with
differentiator. Yeah.
yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and their understanding of emotional intelligence was more around the fact of somebody not having, they're saying, what if they're emotionally devoid? Like
Yeah.
if someone
Aloof.
doesn't have emotional
Yeah.
intelligence, yeah, if somebody doesn't have emotional intelligence, there's no emotion to be seen. And that's when I
Yeah.
said to him, that's only part of emotional intelligence because people can lack emotional intelligence that have a lot of emotion and
That's
they have
right.
no way of regulating it, no way of
Yeah.
managing it. So
Yeah.
it's knowing and being aware of, okay, my emotional brain has kicked in
Mm.
before my logical brain. There's no logic in play at all
Yeah.
here. I'm in an emotional hijack. How do I actually gain control
Mm.
of that emotional brain so that we can get some logic into play as well? So it definitely is going to happen. It's how we're wired. There's no way to
Then,
stop it from happening. It's being able to
yeah.
manage it.
Yeah, it's like leadership. We're all leaders of self before leaders of
Yeah,
others.
that's
And I
right.
think it's the same with EQ. And I always say to people that may be a bit aloof or a bit guarded around emotional intelligence, with coaching, I always dig in and ask the question, what emotional needs are not being met?
hmm
And they will turn around and say, whatever it may be, clarity. Clarity is a need that's not being met. It's not emotional, but once you give them clarity, that helps with that whole self-regulation piece as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just such an interesting field, and I love what you said. It's not new. It's been around since humans have existed. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it is going to be the key differentiator of effective leaders and
hmm
businesses that are transformative and bring people along. Um, I do a bit of stuff, Amy, around, we do work with Roach Martin. So
Mhm.
we've brought that tool into Australia, and they've got like PhDs behind it, but there's 10 key competencies of EQ
Yep.
that we measure on. So it's inner, outer, other.
Mhm.
Things like self-confidence, straightforwardness, optimism, empathy, all of those things. And I just think it's around asking yourself, if I had an emotion that I was aware of that I could bring into everyday conversations and interactions, what would that be? You know, and I think, I don't know, we're moving, like you said, we're moving so fast. And I get, and like you, my life's works around this, but I feel people just really need to bring this in before it's too late.
Yeah, yeah. When the balance isn't right, you
Mm.
see all parts of your life. So it won't
Yeah,
just be work, it'll be all different parts of your life that just kind of halt or they fall down. And that's when you're heading into those burnout areas. That's when you're heading
that's
into those
right.
areas where you want for too much. And I think for me, it comes back to that enoughness. Like, when will it be enough?
Ah, yeah.
When? And
Mm.
I think we're traveling a very, very fine line between
Yeah,
getting that balance right. Because
yeah.
I think, you've got to have that drive and you've got to have that want to grow and develop, but
Mm.
also you've got to have that ability to be able to go to stop and say, okay, I've
Yeah.
reached that now. How do I actually enjoy it? How
Yeah.
do I live?
Yeah, and getting the feedback, I think a lot of in leadership, particularly, it's, how am I going as your manager? How's the team going? How's the office? We need to be measuring this in some way where we're, talking about emotional intelligence with our teams and saying, are you getting connection from me? Do you feel I'm empathetic enough as a leader? I mean, empathy is in like the top 10 traits of successful leaders.
Hmm.
How important is EQ in leadership?
Leadership is its core
Mhm.
basis is emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
So to be a great leader, you have to have that emotional intelligence. I believe is your number one skill
yeah.
of a great leader. And we're seeing that, that as you said, I do agree as well, Renee, that empathy, I think, is the greatest skill you
Oh,
can ever learn. I think
yeah.
it's pure gold. But I think when it comes to leadership, and I would say empathy for human beings is the number one skill. When I look at leadership, what makes a great leader, it's emotional intelligence in its
Yeah.
entirety, right?
Yeah.
Because leadership is about your connection. It's about the connection with the people around us. And we know that human beings, that's what we crave. It's our core
That's a
purpose is
core need.
connection,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when we're looking at these workplaces now and you're seeing it, I'm seeing
Oh,
the amount of articles and jobs and quotes that I have sent to me by people randomly just showing that workplaces are now asking for people in their job descriptions of
yeah.
emotional intelligence. But not only that, people that are going in to be interviewed are asking if their organization is emotionally intelligent. They
Yeah.
want that in return. I was speaking to someone the other
Probably
month
the
and they
generations coming through as well. Yeah. Just, oh, so Amy's just frozen temporarily. You're back now. That's all good.
yeah,
So you're
you're
saying
all good.
organizations, like people getting interviewed, are asking if the organizations are high in emotional intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's a key question that's coming out for both the interviewer and the interviewee. People want to know what that level of focus is, and they don't just want the talk, they want the walk as well. So
Yeah.
it's quite easy for us to say, yeah, we're really focused on our people, but then when you have a look at what they're doing and how they're measuring success in their organization, if they're only measuring the bottom line, then are people really that important? Because you know
That's
you'll
right.
do whatever you can to get that bottom line if that's all you're being measured by.
That's right. And I think it's something even like with the Generation Alpha coming in. they're different. I'm an ex, very, very different in, values and this sort of stuff. And it has to start with the business, and you want to be attracting people that want this. So, Amy, with any business and life, we all have challenges. I always say adopt a gift mindset where you unwrap the gift in challenging people and situations and positive people and situations. What's a challenge you've come up against, I guess, and how has emotional intelligence played out in the way you've responded?
Uh, Renee, emotional intelligence it's the first and foremost thing that's going to play out in every single response. I think when looking at organizations that I've worked with, especially when you're looking at that top level, at that C-suite, at the
Mm,
CEO and their direct
yeah.
reports, seeing them get really caught up in the need to be able to deliver on a product, on a service, or on a number,
Mm,
when deep down, what was missing in their organization was a connection between that group of people.
yeah.
And what I mean by that is that, you get so caught up in chasing and pushing those numbers. And this group that I was working with, they had an incredible organization. The people in that organization were amazing. They
Yep.
had everything going for them. They had a fantastic product that was
Mm,
really highly regarded in the market. But what was happening is when they were coming together at that C-suite level, they weren't a team. They didn't see themselves as a team. What they saw each other as was a representative for each or part of the
yeah.
organization. So what they
Yeah.
would do is when they would come together, they'd be there to kind of, to back up their department and fight for their department and to push for their department. So you're kind of like the representative,
Yeah.
the token person that they've been sent to fight for your area of the organization. But when we actually started to sit down and get them to look at themselves as a team, the fact that that area alone, those two hats of leadership that you've got to look at, that managing up and that managing down, that if you're managing a team, if you're managing a department, you're also going to be a team member yourself at some
That's right.
level.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that connection, if you do not have that emotional intelligence sitting around that table, then it doesn't matter what product, what service, how hard you push your teams, how hard you push your departments, they'll be looking at that top level and going, the problem lies there. That is where the
Right.
problem is. It's not about another restructure. It's not about a new product. It's not about increasing our sales target. It's about actually fixing the connection at that very top level.
Yeah. And it cascades down, as we know, and it has to start from the top. I mean, you're right. And I think too many people change up their offices, or, I could name five companies doing a restructure that isn't necessary, but they think that's the band-aid to
Yeah.
having this. Um, I'd love to ask you, who's a leader that you admire and why?
This is always a tough question for me, and I'll tell you why.
Probably
Because
me.
and it's that thing right around, and you would have read it in my book.
Yeah.
My relationship with change is very high on the scale. So I love change, which means that it's really hard for me to call out my favorite in anything. Like if you ask me my favorite chocolate bar, my favorite movie, my favorite song, I would really struggle to be able to tell you any of that because I love so many. So
Yeah.
when it comes to leaders, I think it's the same for me, right? I look at leaders and go, oh, there are so many that,
Lots
that I
of
kind of that
hits,
I
and
latch
you
on
just
that I
want to
think
put them all together. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. And I think if I look at the people that are really shining and doing really well in this space at the moment, one of my favorite podcasters that I listen to are the Imperfects. I think
Yeah.
they have got like just a really balanced area of leadership in there. And I think some of the stuff that they're doing and some of the conversations that they're having is absolutely incredible. A
I
leader, this is
started
going to,
listening to that podcast last night.
oh, really? Yeah. No, they're fantastic. And I think one of the big ones that's front of mind for me at the moment, being a female in her mid 40s, is watching the menopause movement come through.
Oh, yeah.
And so Dr. Mary Louise, I think to me she's showing some incredible leadership at the moment where, and there's a lot of women out there doing, there's a lot of doctors out there doing it that are showing that there are going to be blockers and limitations along the way, and you're going to go up against different people's beliefs and different people's, understanding and experiences.
Mm.
But a great leader has the ability to be able to listen, but to continue to dig and to continue to
Love it.
push and to just continue to grow and get people to challenge their mindsets. And I think that stands out to me as great leadership.
Yeah, I love that. And menopause 10 years ago was never heard of, like as in spoken about publicly,
Oh,
right? And I think, yeah, you're right. It's even looking at the taboo topics, but looking at the why, the purpose of getting it out there and having high emotional intelligence to have build that confidence and that self-belief to do that. So, Amy, I'd
mm.
love to ask you, where can people get your brand new book, The Emotional Intelligence Advantage?
So, as we always say in all good bookstores, and if the bookstore doesn't have it, then ask them for it. But you,
Yes.
you can get it in all across the world. So, online at any of the online bookstores, you can get it. You can walk into the majority of the bookstores as
Yep.
well, certainly across Australia, but also internationally, and find it there. If in doubt, just head to my website. My website's amyjacobson.com.au, and that will lead you to the book and where you can purchase it as well.
Amazing. And we'll have all your details in the show notes. So if you're looking to get the book, Booktopia, Amazon, all your good bookstores, and we'll have all the links to is it amyjacobson.com.au. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, Amy, because we could talk and talk, I think. What trivia? What is your favorite word?
Oh my, I would say probably my favorite word is either love or amazing. Like
Beautiful.
I'm a highly descriptive person,
Yeah,
and you can probably tell from listening to me that I get excited pretty easily. So for me, it's just that energy, right? And
yeah.
just really loving something or something being incredible or amazing. They're the standout words for
I
me
love
always.
that. I love that. Amazing is actually one of my favorite words because the word actually feels amazing. You know how some words like discombobulated, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And amazing is like, yeah, yeah, I love it.
But I think even when you say it right, the way your mouth moves and the way that your eyes move,
Yeah.
it's kind of like amazing.
Love that. Hey, that could be a good book. Amazing.
Oh, there we
Oh.
go.
What sound or noise do you love?
I love laughter. I just love hearing people laugh. And I think, I am that person that doesn't matter where I am, when I hear people laugh, it makes me laugh as well. And
Contagious.
hearing, yeah, and hearing different people's laughs. But
Mm.
just hearing laughter to me just shows pure happiness. And I think that there's just nothing better than that.
And it makes you feel good. I had a belly, those belly laughs with a girlfriend the other night
Yeah.
where my stomach was aching. I was nearly on the floor. And 24 hours, I was on this high because,
Yeah.
the serotonin. Right?
Endorphins. Yeah, yeah.
We've got 1 meal left. I know, quite morbid. What would it be?
1 meal. I'd take a holiday. They just, yeah.
Oh, 1 meal. 1 meal.
Oh, 1 meal. I thought you said
You
one
can eat it
million. I
on your
was like,
holiday, but
oh, 1 meal. See, again, I couldn't give you just 1 meal. I'm such a foodie, and I will eat whatever is put in front of me. But if there was 1 meal, look, it'd have to finish with chocolate
Yep.
of some
Yep.
type. I'm a massive chocoholic.
Okay.
Uh, 1 meal. Can I go? I'd probably have to go like a tapas or something so that I can have a little bit of everything.
And then have the
A
block of
tapas
chocolate.
meal, that's what
I
I'd
love
have.
it. I love it.
And
And
then the block of chocolate.
and what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Not so much like to attempt because I'd be terrible at it, but I always wanted to be a singer. Always wanted to be a singer, and I've got a terrible voice. But that doesn't stop me having from my little
No,
dance parties in my bathroom every morning. But
love it. I
yeah, I
love
think a singer. a singer, or I would love to, always said I would love to, again, this around sugar, right, is to be one of those taste testers for new chocolate or new sugar
Oh,
products. I think that'd be amazing.
to contact Mars. We used to bring tasters in and they even got paid.
Oh, I would
Focus
love
groups.
that.
Oh, Amy, love your energy and above all, I love your passion and heart in really helping teams, organizations, and people in general ramp up their EQ. I think it's so important, and I love meeting people like you that are helping get the importance of this message across. So, thank you for being part of the podcast today. Any last words for our audience before we finish up?
Yeah, look, I would just go back to that thing of when you finish listening to this podcast, please just take a minute to pause.
Yes.
Take a minute to just pause and think about, how am I actually feeling right now? What makes me happy?
Yeah.
Great place to start.
I love it. Give yourself permission to pause because if you don't, no one else will.
Correct.
Thanks again, Amy, for all your awesome insights. And again, make sure you grab her latest book. Thanks for listening to the Limitless Leaders podcast. As always, we'd love your feedback. If you're interested in being a guest on the show or know someone who is, please reach out and lead to be limitless. Just trying to get this off. Thank you for listening to the Limitless Leaders podcast. So you don't miss an episode, make sure you follow the show in your favorite podcast app. Feel free to share this podcast with your family, friends, and work colleagues. If you're enjoying the show, find out more on what we do at RG Dynamics at www.reneegiarrusso.com. Until next time, be limitless.